screaming at Haaland and Gundogan, you should take the penalties. You should take them. You're the penalty taker.
We think of Haaland as being a demigod, a Norse prince at the very least. But he's still a rookie player on that team. And, you know, there's a dressing room, there's training, there's a seniority amongst players, there's the relationships that he has to have behind the scenes, and it is complicated. From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford, New York, and from the crap part of West Hollywood, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the most awarded tequila.
We back like the Philadelphia 76ers, and Davo, you've got yourself a new king. It's about time they replaced Larry, right? It's been some time.
I didn't even have time to watch the Corrie, Rog. I was nowhere near the Corrie, as GFOP Simon Doonan has been calling it all over social media. I was just Perry Masoning it all weekend, Rog, with GFOP, another GFOP, Matthew Rees.
So did you really not watch the coronation? Because I didn't watch at all, because I'm on the record as saying that my one true queen is obviously Tracy Chapman. But, you know, I've seen the occasional coronation gag on Twitter. But I imagine, you know, I moved to America to get away from all that crap. But I imagine that you would be just like 24/7, just absolutely CNNing it in the face.
Well, Rog, I mean, as I think it's clear to people who've listened to this pod over the years, I'm a monarchist, you're a Republican, but we are selective. You're a selective Republican, and I am a selective monarchist. And I love the Queen. I'd love Tracy Chapman too, but I loved HRH Elizabeth II. I'm not the biggest Charles guy. My father, for multiple reasons, most of them architectural related, was not the biggest Charles guy. And so I'm going to skip this one out and wait for Wills, I think.
Oh, yeah. The funny thing is, whenever anything like this happens, a royal transition, I get asked all the time by CNN and MSNBC to come on and talk about royal things. And I'm always like, yeah, I don't think I'm the droid you're looking for. But, you know, I actually did the royal wedding with the William one. Morning Joe did a week in London, and I went over and did that whole week. And they really liked having me on because I kept calling Prince Harry the half-brother during the wedding. Just like, there's the half-brother, Prince Harry, standing behind his brother. And so they kind of like that. But you know, I'm not that interested in any of this crap. But I do understand it. I do want to say, and we'll talk more about it in this podcast, obviously, because it intersects with football in a large way this weekend. But I do understand, speaking to my mum, you know, she talks about how Elizabeth essentially brought her coronation, a post-war nation together from a dark place, still in a dark place, but with a very nice queen. In a way, Charles and this kind of divided post-Brexit nation, I'd say probably won't. But man, you think about what Britain has now that is truly singular, Davo. Premier League football, Peaky Blinders, and the
TV
royal
drama.
family.
Yeah.
That's my list. That's really my list. The royal family now, whether you like it or you don't like it, and in my family I've got both. Even the people that hate it think, God, we kind of need it. It's kind of a singularity which keeps tourists coming to Britain, keeps them coming all the way for brand Britain purposes. You kind of need it now.
Yeah, you did miss Yorkshire Gold tea, which is another very important thing that keeps the empire together.
Hashtag Team Tetley.
There is a podcast I listen to, Rog, which I really enjoy. The Rest is History. Brilliant history podcast by two British academics. And in this week's version, they talk about the history of coronations and just hilariously talk about the Hanoverian coronations, the various German King Georges of the 18th century, and how disastrous and ridiculous their coronations were. It's really worth a listen if you get a chance.
You know, I will say about coronations, because this is all I can be asked talking about them. But, you know, I realised watching it, this whole ridiculous hoi polloi, fancy ridiculousness, somehow Nick Cave invited. I was like, the link to the lost past that they give, you know, all the way back to 1066 or whatnot, it is like they are essentially the human form of someone having a massive vinyl collection. You know, or probably someone who actually has a massive 8-track collection, something that's totally useless, but it's like, it exists. There's something that exists. The fact that it exists is what's truly remarkable about it. Something that was important in the past, completely outrun by time. But to see it preserved, That's its brilliance. It's like an anachronism, a useful anachronism frozen in time, David. They're just a record collection, the royal family.
I mean, sort of, and it goes back way further than 1066. That coronation, Rog, was pretty interesting. It was just some aggro outside the chapel. It's a bit of a ruck. But yeah, it's all about the divine right of kings, Rog. So they have to have these elaborate ceremonies where it's not the people crowning the king. It's God himself. Or herself is, although within the Church of England, let's face it, it's himself, is crowning the kings. They have to sort of, do these elaborate ceremonies in order to make putting a massive great crown on someone's head seem like it's more important than it probably is.
It's so insane to me. Who do they think Prince Charles think he is? N'Golo Kante? I think not, Davey.
Okay, before we get to the football, because that also happened this weekend, some after-school style PA announcements about what's happening at Men in Blazers World Headquarters. The Champions League is back this week, Roger, and with the semi-finals comes the return of European Nights, presented by Paramount+. You and Rory Smith chopping it up about Pep's Ahab-esque quest for the Champions League title at City. Wednesday, you're doing a Champions League reaction pod and interviewing Plymouth Argyle owner Simon Hallett. That's a European night.
I mentioned this story last week because it is remarkable. Simon is a Bucks County, Pennsylvania Brit, a GFOP who made a nice amount of money and decided, what am I going to do? You know what? I'm going to buy the team that I supported as a child, like my Rosebud. I'm going to buy my Rosebud. And why? Because he was inspired by listening to owners we had coming on this podcast, especially Steve Parish at Palace. And now he's only gone and led them to the brink of the promised land, one level below the Premier League. It's quite a crazy story, a remarkable story. I think there's a lot of leadership in it, a lot of just business strategy in it. I can't wait for this chat. So much happening in that football league. I'm more and more entranced by the kind of bowels of English football, the stories, the human stories that are buried in there, Davo, just aching to be told. And Simon's one of the best.
Yeah, as a kid, I'm just sort of remembering a core memory for me is I saw Plymouth Argyle play when I was about 9 years old or 10 years old against Scunthorpe. And it's the first time I really sort of thought about Scunthorpe. I watched that match as a kid. That was probably old Division 4, Rog.
God, Scunthorpe was actually a great name for a dog. I just realised if I ever made a pile...
Scunthorpe!
And by the way, we're very, very close, the Bennett family, to adopting a second dog. More on this news.
Wow.
More on this news. An insane piece of news that I can't quite get my head around why we would do this. It's a bit like Manchester United signing Ronaldo. You know it's going to be a disaster, but you kind of have to do it. I do realise that if I ever made a pile, I'd be now expected to listen to the Simon Hallett pod and buy League Two Everton in about 10 years.
Yeah.
It would be so bloody romantic. But I don't want to talk about that, David. Let me make a toast, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to raise my first Bud Light of the day to mighty Napoli, who last weekend clinched their first Italian title since Maradona's Scudettos, last one in 1990. And a club, it's got to be said, have done the hard mile since, suffering bankruptcy, relegation to the third tier, but they've risen harder and faster and more deliriously to buccaneer their way to glory behind the highly coveted Nigerian goal machine Victor Osimhen and magically deaf Georgian Kvaradona. It's been humanly wondrous to watch that proud, defiant city gripped by the kind of party really known only to Philadelphia sports fans. A weekend of drunk Vespa driving. Why are you driving that Vespa sober for? A week of tripling the bottom line of the flare and firework industries around the globe. I found it particularly moving to watch Napoli fans post-game at Udinese dig up and save pieces of the pitch on which they won the title. You look at it and you realise football, a sport so powerful, it will cause grown adults to dig up pieces of turf and save them in plastic bags, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, they will be knowing a little bit about Napoli through my girlfriend Gab, who's been wearing her Napoli jersey everywhere for the last few days. that they're pretty much dug up to create a whole industry around selling those said pieces of turf, and lots of other turf which doesn't come from Udinese, which will be masquerading as Udinese turf on which Napoli won the Scudetto.
Oh, by the way, I have put several bags of Udinese turf on eBay myself, and I've never been to the city, never been there in my life.
Oh, so good. Okay, to the Premier League football, Rog. Manchester City 2, Leeds 1. One of football's smoothest, suavest Mediterranean managers takes on Pep Guardiola. That's right, Rog. Big Sam is back. Our prayers have been answered, and he's in charge at Leeds. But all delusions of grandeur were shattered in the 19th minute when Riyad Mahrez gave a little Algerian shimmy on the end line and pulled one back for Ilkay Gundogan to slot home. A goal so simple, they did exactly the same goal again, Rog. A carbon copy made it 2-0 on 27 minutes. City had a chance to go up 3-0, but Erling Haaland, who treats scoring Premier League goals like a barcade popper shot machine, gave it to Gundo, who missed the chance to complete his hat-trick. We're going to get into that, Rog. Rodrigo pulled one back for Leeds almost immediately after. But in the end, not even Big Sam's jowls of justice could dent City's now 20-game unbeaten streak. They lead Arsenal by 1 point with a game in hand.
The league's most potent attack salivating as it limbed up to its most feeble defence. City against Leeds United, who just leaked 18 goals in their past 5 games. A match that felt odds-wise a bit like watching the mighty army of the Roman Empire face up to some scattering Picts and Saxons. And talking of Picts and Saxons, we also got to witness the footballing equivalent of a priest being invited into the hospital room to give last rites. The return of Big Sam Allardyce. Brexit in human form, stumbling onto the field to boos from the City fans, which he seemed to love as he shouted into the microphones, "Here we are again." First manager to coach 9 different Premier League teams. David,
wow.
What did you think seeing an old character served up by the Premier League writers who were clearly on strike in alliance with their Writers Guild brothers and sisters, leaving the league to just kind of recycle old classic storylines?
Well, I mean, I can't help. I mean, I'm surprised that this is what I was thinking when I saw Big Sam back. But the thing that I was marveling at is how he manages to get that much moisture into his jowls. It's just, they are moist jowls. He's been doing some work, maybe some jowl work, while he's been away from management. Since
I think that's what Robbie Keane's for. He said, do you remember when we interviewed James, what's his name? James Corden. And he has a man whose sole job is to, just before the camera goes
That's
on,
right.
he shouts, what does he shout out? He shouts out, "Teeth!"
Teeth!
And he grins, and then a little man steps in to make sure he has no spinach in his teeth, because once he'd been on camera and had spinach in his teeth, so he now has a spinach checker.
Yeah.
Do you think Big Sam, maybe it's Robbie Keane.
Somebody comes in with a pump.
Yeah,
and they just put a bunch of moisture into his jowls. It's possible, Rod.
Jowls!
It is possible.
Just see how he goes out and he shouts
Jowls!
jowls. And Robbie comes in with a giant jowl syringe and just pumps it in. Whatever it is, he was back with piss and vinegar and bombast. We all saw the press conference. Nobody ahead of me in football terms. Not Pep, not Klopp, not Arteta. And asked if he'd win the treble with City before the game. He just responded, absolutely. And in fairness, took a lot of crap for that. Big Sam's idea of a treble is a steak and kidney pie, chips washed down with a pint of white wine. So I did love it personally as a neutral, but for Leeds fans, I want to be clear, to go from just the iconic Marcelo Bielsa in his bucket to the joyless football of Sam Allardyce. I've been there as an Everton fan. To go there in 18 months is really proof of the whiplash, chaos and lack of plan at Ellen Road. But in his first big call, Big Sam dropped inconsistent shell-shock goalkeeper Meslier, flung on Everton old boy Joe Robles for his first game since December 2017. And for City's part, fascinating, Haaland started, KDB started, despite Real Madrid looming Tuesday. Load management? What load management? And with those two in the team, Leeds quaked, sat deep, very deep from the off. You know, again, for a fan base who love their team playing front foot football, this was rearguard action, sitting back, snapping at the heels of City, clearly going to be an exercise in concentration and mental tenacity, hemmed in with the likes of KDB and Gundogan, just probing every cavity. God bless Robles, made A fine save from Haaland, but it was really like watching a dam crack under hysterical pressure. 19th minute, Morris cut in from the right, fed Gundogan, acres of space. Elvis Costello'd home the ball. His aim was true. Davo, you can't leave that man like that, can you?
No, and it's amazing because in the replay, he walks into the shot, literally waving his arms. And even as he waves his arms, none of the Leeds United players seem to notice him, and gets the ball and just slots it into the net. Fantastic, fantastic clinical finish.
Yeah, Leeds now had to score, which led them having to expose themselves in the process. City, honestly, were like watching someone who could tie a cherry stem with their tongue. There was this move where Gundogan floated a ball to KDB in the box, and he floated it with the outside of his boot. It was one of the most exquisite passes of the season. KDB decided to spin round and dish it off while spinning the other way. Haaland rifled the shot just wide. He's terrible at football, only Haaland. But it was as if every touch looked at the one before it and decided, I can better that. Exquisite football, played by demigods, and it would soon be 2-0. Almost the same goal twice, Davo. Mahrez, Gundogan, edge of the Leeds box. Leeds sitting so deep. By the way, somehow they fit 2 banks of 5, and still had him unmarked on the end. That's how bloody deep they were. It was remarkable.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff. And, felt bad for Robles, the goalie at that point, beaten by almost exactly the same shot.
Yeah, but Gundogan's finish was almost intellectual. It was amazing. Right after that, City fans to Big Sam, you're getting sacked in the morning. And there was an amazing moment where Leeds had a free kick in a dangerous area, actually, and the commentators said something like, Leeds will have been training hard at these situations. And whoever took the free kick, I can't remember, he just banged it right out of bounds, nowhere near a player, just went straight out, no anything. And the camera's cut to Big Sam on the sideline, who just, not, my lip reading is not at John Boy levels, but he just shouted something like, effing wankers! And his own players. Yeah, I'm watching Robbie Keane. Get the jowl syringe for Sir. Amazing statistics at halftime. Passes completed. Ilkay Gundogan, 92. Leeds United, 47. And it wasn't just Gundogan. Akanji, Laporte, Lewis all had more completed passes than their opponent. Second half, damage control, suffocating football for City. Leeds creaking, begging, kind of just don't humiliate us, don't break us, don't stomp us, save that behaviour for Everton next weekend. Then an incredible moment. Foden won a penalty. Haaland handed the ball to Gundogan. Seems so noble in the hat-trick. Yeah, it seems so noble in the moment. Yes, I'm on a goal tear. Yes, I'm programmed to score goals by my coders. But yes, this is a record-breaking season. But, you're on a hat-trick, mate. I'm a team player. You finish your hat-trick, you beautiful man. And when he wrapped the shot off the right-hand post, Gundogan, Pep Guardiola, going berserk on the sideline, Davo. Did it cross my mind that might be the missed goal which sends Everton down on goal difference? Be lying if I say, no, I didn't. But David, what do you think of that? It was an incredible moment, especially because, in a ruthless way, Leeds went right down the other end of the field and Rodrigo punished them after a Kanji headed weekly, and it felt briefly like game on. What did you make in that moment? Because I thought that was fascinating. Pep screaming at Haaland and Gundogan, you should take the penalties. You should take them. You're the penalty taker.
Well, I think to some of it, it's a reminder that we think of Haaland as being a demigod, a Norse prince at the very least. But he's still a rookie player on that team. And, there's a dressing room, there's training, there's a seniority amongst players, there's the relationships that he has to have behind the scenes, and it is complicated. And it's not the first time we've seen this. We see it happen in international games. We've seen it happen in World Cup games, Rog. So, I felt for him in his slightly, not confused face, but almost embarrassed face after Pep was getting on him from the sidelines. I don't think, Erling Haaland seriously believes that he's let down his club this season. But yeah, it was a moment. And it did get worse for Manchester City.
Yeah, it did briefly, fleetingly. Look, City ultimately held on, and Pep post-game explained his anger, saying it's one thing to pass on a penalty at 4-0 with 10 minutes left, but something different at 2-0. It's the Premier League. We had an interesting raven from a GFOP, Ian Leeson, who wrote, While the penalty drama with Leeds made things far more suspenseful than they needed to be, I believe Pep was ultimately thrilled. He couldn't have scripted it better himself. In all sports, it's dangerous for a team to become complacent as City rolls towards the title. With Madrid looming, they've had few true tests recently. What that penalty did for them was knock them back down to earth a bit without forgoing the 3 points. It was almost perfect for a Pep learning moment. It was irrelevant on the day. 20 games won in a row, all comms for City. It's just insanely as close to human perfection as we have seen. They temporarily went 4 points ahead before Arsenal played. Erling Haaland hit the bar and the post against a team his dad played for. Still believe you should get points when you lose to City, but keep Haaland off the score sheet. Gent did not get a goal or an assist in a Premier League game for the first time since February the 18th. Just a wow statistic. All eyes now move to Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final. A true clash of titans. Wayne Rooney wrote this weekend, City will prevail. They won't just beat them, they will blow Madrid away. Davo, do you agree with Wazza?
Yeah, I just love Wayne Rooney wrote this weekend with a fountain pen and
he's a poet.
And the whole
Wayne writes poetry. Wayne, yeah. And I've talked to him about it. I want to be clear. Wayne is an author. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Man City are the class of Europe. And I think that Real Madrid are pretty good. I've seen them, play a few times this season, but I don't think they're in City's class.
Oh, nor were Leeds on this day. But you remember, City won this fixture last season 7-0. So you could almost claim, and that's how Leeds reacted at the final whistle. Big Sam and Leeds in a relegation battle in which goal difference could very well be critical. Almost the second half felt like a win as the Leeds fans sang marching on together deliriously down the stretch, taking off their shirts, standing behind their team defiant. Despite only having 17% possession, Big Sam got these players together, serenaded the fans, saluted them back. They roared back their approval. Sam knows there are battles, 3 real battles still to come.
Arsenal, though, back to the top of the table, do appear determined to take the Premier League title race to 12 rounds. Newcastle 0, Arsenal 2. Mikel Arteta's mob go north of the wall and they backhand the Toon, Rog. One of the performances of the season, I thought. They scored first on 14 minutes with an Ødegaard heat check from distance. And after peppering Nick Pope, they picked the lock again in the 71st minute with G-Mart proving that there are certain corridors which remain uncertain, thrusting one across goal that Fabian Schär turned into his own net. A massive win for the title race. And in the context of the top 4, Newcastle now just 2 points clear of 4th place and just 3 of 5th.
The big one. As hotly anticipated as the night before the election on ATN, 2nd versus 3rd. Arsenal, having conceded 14 goals in the last 7, desperate to maintain a semblance of a title race, winless in their last 3 away games. This was really must-win territory as they barreled their way up north to face newly imperious Saudi Toon. This Newcastle, just 1 defeat in their last 16 home games so far this season. Incredible. 8 wins in their past 9 games, 13 goals to 3 in their last 3. St. James's Park was bonkers. It was bouncing. That roar pre-game, Davo. Honestly, I felt like I could open my window 3,000 miles and a world away and still hear it. It was an explosive noise. What a cauldron that place has become.
Newcastle and their fans believe in themselves. They believe in the football they're playing. They believe that they're good enough to not only make it into Europe, but to contend in Europe and to contend against the big boys. And early in this game, that confidence seemed completely and utterly justified.
Yeah, Arsenal tried to do that thing they do where they try and, dish the ball around in the open and just dazzle. But my God, the very first time Newcastle dispossessed them, they soared forward. Wilson skinning all comers down the left. Brilliantly cunning pass across the box. Found stealth goal machine Murphy. Parked himself where Zinchenko should have been. And slapped a laser agonisingly off the post. I mean, playing with Callum Wilson and Isak, 2 of the hottest attackers in the Premier League. Starting together, though, for the first time. Eddie Howe unleashed the hounds. Newcastle pressed Arsenal high up to their own halfway line, tempted to hem them in, also leaving an acre in behind. That was the trap they set. Could Arsenal tactically, but also mentally, break that line in the cauldron-like conditions, and bend was the way they went. Only just. Kivior barely getting away with thigh to hand. Arsenal seemed rocked. Newcastle like barbarians overwhelming the gates of civilization. Arsenal seemed like a man drowning for large spells in that first phase. But football, one of the things I love most about it is that the drama plays out live and the unpredictability of it all is always there, always lingering. Arsenal's first true sustained attack, 40 minutes. Saka found Jorginho to Ødegaard outside of that Kenny Loggins danger zone for normal men. Oh, but not for wizards like Ødegasm, David.
Yeah, and he didn't even hit it well, Rog. He didn't feel like he got his full, 135 pounds wet weight behind it. It just sort of, but it was in its own way a laser that went through several players and
at least
made
two
its way
nutmegs
past,
in there.
Yeah, made its way past Nick Pope into the back of the net.
It's like from 25 to 30 yards out, you don't really shoot from there. Especially when you're a man, Ødegaard, who is, the statistics and the fans tell him he can't score big goals against big opponents. So honestly, it was the kind of goal that doesn't seem possible from that far out, to hit the ball so low and so true. Nick Pope almost stunned by the temerity of it all. Newcastle shaken, rattled. Arsenal started to move the ball quicker, holding on to possession, making Newcastle chase. Martinelli through, Pope big to smother. There was an Ødegaard laser that followed. He flapped at it. We were in Arsenal shoot on sight territory. Saka next one in one-on-one. Pope again, stood him up again. I mean, both sides, Davo. In that first half, you had Ramsdale making incredible one-on-one saves. It was really an England goalkeeper face-off.
Yeah, no, fantastic performances actually going on both sides of the ball and all over the pitch, all the way back to goalkeeper. It was an absorbing game of Premier League football played between two very good teams, but just one, I would say an Arsenal who came up with what for me was their best performance of the season. And so in some ways, maybe not best, it was their most impressive performance of the season.
What impressed me was in those conditions, in that midfield, that was where the battle was. Who can control that midfield? Ødegaard, and I've got to say the deftly energising Jorginho with their cunning and their guile. Guy Meresh and Joe Linton, they bring their intensity, their work rate, their power. And as both teams played high lines, there was room in behind for both. Wilson always flickering to get Newcastle back into the game. It was a high velocity game of football, a territorial battle for the upper hand. And then it turned into a testy game, to an angry one. Davo, half time, could have been 5 or 6 goals in that game. Should also have been a splattering of yellow cards. Instead, it was just 1-0, somehow cautionless. But my God, it was immense to witness.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. The referee was letting them play and actually letting them fight after they were playing. It was really went both ends. I mean, early on, I thought Arsenal were in trouble. Newcastle came out and were just so on top of them. But I was so impressed with Arsenal and how they showed that fortitude to get back into the game. And including, you just briefly mentioned Jorginho. What a piece of transfer business he has turned out to be. For the Gunners, playing brilliant football, giving players around him time and space, playing more positive football. I mean, you've got to give Arteta credit for that than he played at Chelsea. Far more vertical than he is horizontal, certainly than he was at Chelsea. Brilliant stuff.
Brave selection there to say, Partey, I'm not going to play the muscle Newcastle game. I'm going to actually undo them with guile. And having Jorginho in that team actually allows Ødegaard to play a little more forward, which changed the dynamic absolutely. But you talk about Newcastle coming for Arsenal. Again, the beginning of the second half, Murphy charging forward, making Zinni tumble. Isak heading off the post. Second later, Ramsdale, strong wrists off a Schär corner. Granit Xhaka charging back. Willock foot pulled back, ready to shoot. He blocked it. Really like a Swiss Dikembe Mutombo. It was just incredible. Him running 50 yards back just to jump on a grenade for his teammates. All the polar opposite to this time last year. Similar visit to St James's Park for Arsenal. A feeble 2-0 loss, which led to an agonising concession of a Champions League place, and even worse, to, God forbid, Tottenham. The game really did start to become about who would tire more, who would be able to keep up this cavalry battle fought out with heavy armour. The ref calling nothing. This was prison rules. Honestly, it was like 90 minutes of Jokic and the Phoenix Suns owner just going at it constantly. Schär charging through Jesus, and my mind started wondering, David, do you not think, this is a bit crazy, but bear with me, do you not think football would be just a little bit better off with the introduction of, I don't know, imagine like 2 different coloured cards, one, whatever colour you decide, could be given as a warning, and a second would lead to the player going off.
Oh, yeah. You mean, how about yellow and red? Would those work? Would those work for you? Or if you do something really bad, you could just introduce one card and you could get rid of them immediately.
Yeah, Dave, I don't like to cause added wrinkles, added complexities for football. Watching that second half, UEFA, if you're listening, FIFA, it's my gift to you. I'm not even going to sue you if you start to do it. It's just a thought. However, another thought, karma may well exist, because just 4 minutes later, Arsenal dispossessed Newcastle in their own area, sprang forward Jesus to Martinelli, who ditched Botman with the old Sao Paulo 1-2 soft shoe shuffle before banking the ball home off who, Davo? Off Schär himself, as Peter Drury dropped some Pulitzer-level crap. This is intoxicating, and from Arsenal, that was proud, that was chest out, that was chin up. Magic, Davo. Just the karma aspect, but also the exclamation point temerity of it all.
That was a goal of swags, Roger. It was just a player and a team who believe in themselves, believe in their manager, believe in each other, and believe in their ability to overcome in an incredibly hostile environment. And for anybody who hasn't been to St. James's Park, when it's fully throated, that is a hostile environment.
Down the stretch, Newcastle were, it's got to be said, this was fascinating. I don't know how you feel about it, but they were totally thrown off their focus. Arsenal killed off the game admirably from an Arsenal POV, but just some of the craftiest time-wasting game management you will see. And the Toon Army, God, how they howled. Even though it's got to be said, gamesmanship, running down the clock, that was Newcastle's calling card earlier all season, David.
Yeah. Absolutely. Game recognized game, but didn't like it at all. Didn't like it. Didn't want to see it.
I recognise you while not exactly enjoying the medicine doled out to us. 3 points for Arsenal. Clean sheet, all limbs intact. 80 points amassed in a Premier League season for the first time since 2008. They closed the gap at the top to a point behind Manchester City, albeit having played a game more. But they still believe they can still purr. They can still go into big games, take a 2-0 lead and not crumble. It's almost as if they are learning the lessons of this season while we're still in it. They host Micro Power Brighton next Sunday. Just that game is its own classic piece of theatre, just an epic prospect, David. But this was brave from Arsenal. This was courageous. This was, in context, the most impressive performance for me of their season.
As I've already said, I was mightily impressed by this. It would be too easy for them, and they'd get away with it as well if they'd folded in this game. And I think, Peter Drury would have written an epic poem about it's easy to understand how after being caught up that they're letting it all go. They would have had permission. They've certainly got, points in hand enough to go and cruise for the rest of the season. I think the fact that they're not cruising, the fact that they came out and that they fought and that they prevailed, and they played through the suffering, Rog. Remember when we interviewed Daniel Medvedev and he talked about that he's willing to suffer as a tennis player when those points are long, when his opponent feels on top, when he just knows that it's a moment when everybody thinks he's going to lose. He likes the suffering of staying in the points and figuring out a way to go and win them. This was Arsenal suffering with Newcastle and enduring it and making it through on the other side.
Medvedev says he likes pain because he knows he can endure pain more than his opponent. That's the terrain in which he plays. And that is a way Arsenal, bloody Arsenal. I mean, if you've seen the history of Arsenal over the last 10 years, to even say that is the most remarkable tribute to them that is possible. For Newcastle, they tried to hand out a beating, ended up taking real lumps of their own. They'll learn that pure emotion and guile and power, it's not going to make the very best teams buckle. Those teams will step it up a level. Newcastle will have to get the quality to meet them there. And especially compensate when Guimaraes is not on the top of his game as he wasn't yesterday. That quality no doubt will be coming in the summer transfer window. But the net effect of this game, we still have a title race. And my younger son Oz said to me at the final whistle, he just muttered, "Oh God, I pity whomever Manchester City play next. And it is, of course, Everton Football Club. The run-in for Manchester City, Everton, Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford with Real Madrid games flung in there. There is room for a cock-up, Davo. There is, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, Everton, 3 points. Chelsea, 3 points.
Brighton, yeah, it won't be up against either of our teams, but there is room somewhere. We will see. Okay, now to another team in the crucible of that top 4 race against a team hoping to crawl across the Premier League safety line. West Ham 1, Manchester United 0. David Moyes against the team that he substitute taught for a season, only to pull one over on them. The difference in this one, a 27th minute speculative effort that went through the mitten of stray cat David De Gea, and the Irons remained resolute and well-drilled from there on out. Bubbles are back in the Premier League yet again, not to mention in the semi-finals of a European competition.
Yeah, a game with so much at stake at both ends of the table. West Ham, best of times, Europa Conference League semi-finalists. Worst of times, could not shake the stench of the relegation zone. They'd shaken the stomach bug, which saw Declan Rice and Souček back in action to face Manchester United, a team United who heard Liverpool's, well, not clip-clop of their hooves, more Jurgen Klopp of their hooves, right? In the Champions League race, Liverpool 1 point behind, albeit United had a game in hand. And the game opened brightly. United had a couple of Bruno and Anthony rangefinders. They dominated almost totally without truly creating danger. Weghorst in over both Martial and Sancho meant that Rashford and Fernandes had to be moved tactically to accommodate him. So, of course, again, football being football. First time West Ham trundled forward, they scored. I'm still trying to understand this goal, David. Benrahma from insane distance, slow roller, P-roller, so slow that when you watch it, West Ham fans did that groan that fans do when they're excited for a shot and then it turns out to be a bust. But De Gea, record-breaking De Gea on the day, 540th game for United, most by any goalkeeper in the team's history. Contract negotiations, will he stay, will he go? 12 long years there. I mean, I thought it was Dave saves Davo, not Dave palms the ball into the back of his own net. I think the technical term is he Lloris'd it.
Yeah, it's like that ball in cricket, Rog, which the bowler will just throw and just like get his palms into it, hold it with his whole big hand, and it will go about 20 miles an hour slower than his normal delivery.
A change-up in baseball.
Yeah,
you think it was a change-up?
Yeah, it was a change-up, and the batsman is like way ahead of it. It was a change-up. It was just it was too slow. It was a drop shot. It was too slow for David De Gea to be able to handle or even process in his mind of where his body was meant to be.
Should have got his feet to it.
Yeah.
Should have just dived with his feet like a child. He's only bloody good now with his feet. Only Jordan Pickford has more errors leading to goals, 13 in the last 5 years, than David De Gea and his 11. His mistakes, feeling worse in this moment. The Europa League loss to Sevilla still burns strong. Feels like we're watching the death rattle of a legend. A club great, undoubtedly, but a man out of time, shot stopper in an era where we want our goalkeepers to be tactical ball players. And he's not even really reliably shot stopping anymore. But suddenly watching him, you realise Liverpool fans will be going full on. Emily Dickinson, hope is the thing with feathers. West Ham became ascendant. Antonio, Paqueta, Benrahma, Rice, bullying a limp United. Hammers screwed hard by VAR, I thought, when Benrahma slapped in a cross and Lindelof seemed to kind of stoop to conquer to get his hand in, but the ref didn't give it. VAR's got some... David, I don't know what... VAR is a strange creature sometimes. This is one of those times. David Moyes, always incandescent.
Yeah, one of the problems with VAR is it is supervised by humans. I think we've just got to let it go over to ChatGPT, to the AI, and just let's see if the robots, I doubt they're going to do a worse job.
Should have Erling Haaland run VAR when he's not playing football. Is that what he said? UEFA his own president.
Erling Haaland could run VAR while he is playing football and it'd still be leading the league in
That'd be
scoring.
incredible. By the way, no one would argue with him either. Oh, yes, good decision, Mr. Haaland. Very good, Mr. Haaland. But, UEFA President Schäfer, when he came on our show, he told me no one understands what handball is anymore. And that was one of those moments when I'm like, I genuinely, if that's not it, dictionary definition, I don't know what is. But United looked like a rabble, tired, physically, mentally, unsyncopated, team that had kind of Europa League themselves to death for long stretches. Second half just felt like West Ham were just amusing themselves by floating one cross after another from the byline. Declan Rice everywhere. Dude thinks he can beat the other team single-handedly when he feels great about himself. And that was it. 1-0, West Ham. Davo, they're going to be alive. They're going to live in the Premier League next season. A massive result for Irons fans, but also for the bubble industry, right? Big bubble. Big bubble must be delirious.
Yeah, big bubble, certainly in East London, but all over the capital, all over the country, all over the world, Rog. It's a very, very good day for bubbles and bubble enthusiasts.
God, I've got to say, so bloody happy for David Moyes. That was his first win over United since he was spat out there humiliatingly in 2014. Safety secured, salvation for David Moyes. But United, second loss, second 1-0 loss in just 4 days. The goals have just dried up at the worst time. Just 8 in the last 10 games. And the whole end to the season thing starting to feel horribly uncomfortable. Liverpool are coming. They've got winnable games. Leicester, Villa, Southampton. United must win 3 of the 4 they've got left. Wolves, Bournemouth, Chelsea, and Fulham. There's a real sense, and it's particularly with the uncertainty surrounding the sale of the club. Poor Ten Hag saying he doesn't know how much money he's got to spend to upgrade the squad this summer because of the chaos around the ownership. The glass suddenly feels both half full and half empty right now at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I love it that when we refer to Manchester United ownership, we really should just always call it the chaos around the ownership, because that's what it has pretty permanently been for season after season after season.
So better days ahead for all.
Okay, now to the team that, as you mentioned, are coming up round the outside of that top 4 race, Rog. Liverpool 1, Brentford 0. The Reds coming in on the back of 5 straight league wins, and in just the 13th minute, Fabinho lifted a tasty ball to the back stick, which a streaking Big Verge pulled back with his head to Mo Salah, who eventually convinced the ball to go in for his low-key amazing 30th goal of the season in all competitions. Liverpool extend their winning streak to 6. They're within 3 points of third, just 2 of fourth. Race for Champions League is on, although they have played, as you mentioned, 1 game more.
Perhaps the lasting image of this game was this is a weekend in which the national anthem was compulsorily played before every game, and Liverpool, originally didn't want to play it because they knew what would happen, and what they thought would happen did happen. The national anthem was booed and then drowned out with a rendition of Liverpool, Liverpool, Liverpool. It was a remarkable spectacle to witness as someone that grew up in the city. A lot of listeners were confused by what happened. I actually wrote a book, Reborn in the USA, and a lot of that book was trying to recreate the reality of Liverpool in the 1980s that I grew up with, when it was really a true working class port city in a post-industrial reality in which unemployment soared. I think it was around 20% when I was a kid. Real sense of hopelessness. There was a heroin epidemic destroying the fabric of the place. Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister, ordered a policy that she called managed decline of the city in the era. She really scapegoated it. It felt that Liverpool was known as a city of thieves and scoundrels. Music and football felt like all we had. Everton and Liverpool were the 2 best clubs in Europe. And the local government, I wrote this in my book, seriously debated ceding for the rest of England and becoming an independent republic, which I really honestly hope for, the Republic of Liverpool. But it's why a lot of Scousers never supported the English national team, which felt like a symbol of the South. We talked about that a lot. Your man Jamie Carragher also said, although he enjoyed playing for England, it never really bothered him when he lost. Whereas when Liverpool lost, he wanted to, just end himself. He said, but when I watched this, Davo, I truly understood the booing, that singing of Liverpool, Liverpool. In 1984, both teams, Everton and Liverpool, got into the League Cup final, and we took over. 1 in 5 males went down to London, the capital city, took it over, sang Merseyside, Merseyside the whole game, and it felt delirious. this felt to me like a symbol of defiance and pride. And genuinely, like I just understood it and felt it. What did you make?
Well, I mean, first of all, free speech is a wonderful thing, kids. It still works. And I, as Jurgen Klopp did after the game, I love the fact that it's a country in which people are free to do that, and that it counts. I think the other thing, having spent some time in Liverpool myself, Rog, and all of those things that you say are absolutely correct. But, booing the national anthem, singing that, Liverpool, 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 required some people to be singing the national anthem. And that's the other interesting thing about the area, is that Liverpool is surrounded by many areas that are more conservative. The golf club, rugby playing country that exists, particularly in Cheshire, but around in parts of the northwest, and also the sort of the appeal of Liverpool. There are a lot of Liverpool fans from all over the country, all over the realm, Rog. So it required some people to be singing it in order for the anti-chants to have colour. But certainly they bowed them out, and I do think that Liverpool is extraordinary and unique in its own sort of nation statism.
It's true. It is gloriously, wonderfully true. And you did have surreal scenes. You had Jordan Henderson, son of a policeman, singing the national anthem from the bench, but not too loudly. Caught between being a proper red, understanding it, the ethos of the club and the city, but also being an England player and wanting to do his duty. Trent Alexander-Arnold. I've watched the anthem part a dozen times, Dave, and I can't tell if he was moving his lips or he was just cold. It was like, I couldn't tell whether he was doing the Hendo thing, but just slightly less, or what it was. But then the cameras cut. You talk about people singing the anthem. The Brentford away fans, just delirious in their Union Jack plastic bowler hats, down, up north, muscled Southerners, just reveling in it all, singing so loudly. And then it was over, drowned out by You'll Never Walk Alone, the true anthem of the club, as the Cop waved their King Kenny signs, their one true king besides the Egyptian king that they recognise. Funny part, when you watch it, the commentator was almost relieved when it was all over. He just went, okay, to the football. It was just like, I think for the poor commentator, I can't remember who was broadcasting, but whoever, it was clearly just a horror show, not really knowing what to say, so staying totally silent and then just like, to the football. And to the football. 5 wins on the bounce, Liverpool. Were so dominant, so much space, so much tails up football, took the lead on 13 minutes. I think it was Curtis Jones, slapped a shot which was blocked. Fabinho fed, big verge, you headed right across the face of goal, and I really mean the face. I said Liverpool only respect 2 kings. Kenny Dalglish, a true great Scottish, just a fiery creator of the 70s, just a golden period of Liverpool Football Club, and the modern day Egyptian one. And it was Mo prodding home 2 touches, ultimately from virtually the goal line. These records, Davo, with this goal, he's in Harry Kane territory where every bloody goal feels like at least one record is tumbling. 9 successive home games scoring, a record. 8th player to rack up 100 goals at Anfield. 186 total goals in his career for Liverpool, now level with Steven Gerrard. We praise him every bloody week, but it's almost, when you saw that, just the consistency of his brilliance, it's ineffable.
Yeah, 30 years old, so much experience, so much brilliance. There's, it's been written about in several circles that, we're starting to see the beginning of the decline of Mo Salah. If this is decline, then long may he continue to reign. This is a guy who, you look at his fitness, you look at his speed, you look at his guile, you look at his, intelligence, you look at, his technique, and you think he can continue to score, boatloads of goals, well into his mid-30s.
Oh, God, bite your arm off for that kind of decline is all I can say. But the actors scoring did lead Liverpool to take their foot off a bit. Brentford organised, confident, came to life, dominated possession, scored once. A delirious and Mbeumo romp downfield in which I'm pretty sure he pants Virgil van Dijk, then rolled home, VAR narrowly offside. Lovely stat actually flashed up at half-time. Trent Alexander-Arnold, since moving into that hybrid midfield role April 9th, is now first in assists, chance creation, possession, won, touches and more. But the reality was Liverpool's midfield, even with him, had no control of this game. It was Brentford creating most of the danger in that second half and menace. I mean, how bad did it get that Alisson was booked at home for time wasting as Liverpool fans entertained themselves by singing about the King's brother, that Andrew is a nonce, na 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 na. Andrew is a, to the tune of KC and the Sunshine Band's Give It Up. David, I can't think of a sunnier song set to two horrific lyrics, a horrific truth, if you will, than that.
Yeah, well, nonce is just so mild for Prince Andrew as well. Is he still a prince, or have we taken that away from him? Yeah, that seems mild.
Oh, Liverpool's 6th successive Premier League victory. Clean sheet for the first time since March. 3 points. Takes them to the brink of the top 4. They keep winning. United have games in hand. But Klopp, it's amazing watching him at the end, pumping his fist. But also, I've never seen this move before. Took a deep bow while waving his hat to the cop in a very kind of Dickensian, Victorian street scamp style. It showed he thinks outside cheeky chant. Yes, King Klopp, the Koenig. Just shades of 2020-21 all over again, or at least some positive vibes going into the summer rebuild to come. But I say this often, it's my only life truth that I offer you listeners: never, ever, ever write off Liverpool Football Club. I have many times in my life. I can show you the scores after we pod.
The other team still grasping at a top 4 spot, Tottenham. They beat Crystal Palace 1-0, a London derby between Spitfire pilot reincarnate Harry Kane and actual Spitfire pilot Roy Hodgson. More of a Spitfire mechanic, I think. But this one was all about Harry in his first half. Injury time, he found a pocket of space and hit a swivelling volley from the left all the way to Pedro Porro out on the right. He then thundered into the box where he proceeded to elevate and latch onto a ball from the aforementioned Porro, scoring his 209th Premier League goal. It really was a classic striker's goal, taking him past Wayne Rooney to become the Premier League's second all-time leading goal scorer behind only Alan Shearer. And that was that. Big day for Harry. Much needed win for Tottenham.
God, an incredible clash. Mostly because of the age chasm between the two managers. Spurs interim, Ryan Mason is 31 years old. Palace's interim, Roy Hodgson, is 75, 43 years and 300 days between these two blokes. Biggest gap between two managers in Premier League history. It really was granddad against grandson fair. English version of Fred Savage and Peter Falk in The Princess Bride. And this game, very much a fairy tale for Tottenham after that tragic comedy of their defeat to Liverpool last weekend. Lots of players dropped by Mason. Bold moves, Kulu, Eric Dyer amongst those left out. But it was Harry Kane, who in honesty a bit of a snooze of the game, played the role of Wolfsamso, Inigo Montoya, scoring on the cusp of half-time. It was just a stunning goal. The way he created the danger, instinctively bringing that ball down, slapping it out, no look into the space on the right. Porro ran on. Kane continued to run. Porro found him, headed home with certainty. Davo, 100th home goal. Again, this is the territory he and Salah are in. Every goal is many records. For him, 100th home goal. And he passed Wayne Rooney for second most goals all time in the Premier League. 209 in just 317 appearances. Only Alan Shearer now stands ahead of him in the all-time Premier League scoring list with 260 goals. And Kane scoring at a clip, 0.66 goals a game. My math is a bit crap, listeners. So maths teachers listening, correct me. I think it means he needs just 79 more games to score his record goal. He's not going to Bayern Munich is really the point I'm trying to make, is he here, Davo? He's staying in our Premier League. And that record will be his, fitness permitting.
Yeah, because he scores, he's a classic player. He's a throwback player in so many ways, Rog. There are very modern elements of his game, the way he drops back, his ability to pass the ball, his tactical nous. But just this finish, of all the games to break that record, this was just the perfect style of goal. A classic number 9, a classic centre-forward goal, leaping and just finishing with the confidence that you cannot imagine many other players currently playing in the Premier League being able to do. It just was beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Spurs have been a first-half horror show. And this was just the sixth time all season. This is amazing that they went into the break in the league with the lead. And that's how it stayed. Second half really played in slow motion by both teams. 1-0 Spurs, 3 points, takes them up to 6 points off the top 4. Roy Hodgson, I think, is going to start wearing sunglasses and not moving on the bench, really. Vacation time. They're 12th, nothing to play for, which for them, when you consider where they were when he inherited the team, is really the stuff of dreams. But one truly awful note. Sunday morning, Tottenham Hotspur released a statement saying that Song Heung-min was racially abused by a Crystal Palace supporter during the game. Really in the most crassly disgusting fashion. He was caught on camera and is almost certainly going to be banned for life. And I just want to send love to Sonny and to all Palace fans, like GFOP at New York Eagles, a gent who runs a local Palace fan group, and tweeted us, do you know who runs this account? An Asian American man. I'm dismayed to see someone who supports my club reveal his true character with a stupid, pathetic, racist gesture against an Asian footballer. Get that racist garbage out of my club, out of the sport. And I just say, to better days ahead for all. Sometimes, so many times, to be honest, Davo, it's hard to believe we're watching all of this in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I know everyone at Palace agrees with that, Rog. Talking of much needed wins, Bournemouth 1, Chelsea 3. Frank gets his first win since moving back into his childhood bedroom, which his parents have assured him he can only stay in until he finds a job.
We've turned it into a gym, Frank.
But finally, some glimmers of hope. Finally, some incisive attacking football from Chelsea, who went out ahead via a well-timed and brave 9th-minute Conor Gallagher header. But this Bournemouth team pulled one back via some liquid cherry football in the 21st minute. That finish from Matheus Vinha. Wow. But a series of tactical adjustments and smart substitutions did see Chelsea get late goals from Benoit Badiashile and João Felix to scoop up all 3 points. Rog, we scored not just one goal, we scored 3 goals and won a big boy game on the road.
Two teams entering the game both on 39 points, but feeling so bloody different for getting there. You're fighting cherries in boom shakalaka form, winners of 6 of their last 9 games. Chelsea, all I can say, the achievement of this season is to be also safe from relegation. But that's about it. Losers
Frank's done it again.
Yep, poor Frank actually entered with 10 straight losses. I mean, truly an incredible run. To put it into historical context, last English manager to lose more consecutive games with a top flight club, Herbert Bamlett. They don't name him like that anymore.
Yeah,
Herbert. Bamlett? It was Bamlett.
Giles? Yeah.
Yes, Herbert Bamlett. It's in the days when you had to moisturise your own jowls. 14 with Manchester United in 1930. And I feel, we've talked about it, Frank, I feel for him. Decent bloke, clearly not a great manager. Trying to do the club he loves a solid. It's blown up in his face. That 3-1 loss to Arsenal last week. Just a total turd. Super Frank reeling through wholesale changes. I think there were 5 ahead of this one. But it turns out poor Frank's first tactical error, nothing to do with the starting 11. Davo, pre-match singing of the English national anthem. Frank sang and cameras caught this. God save the Queen. Was that man still nostalgic for an era when the tactics were more basic? Roman Abramovich was the true king and football just felt easier for Chelsea.
He may also be a selective monarchist, Rog. We have no idea. It's tough to get out of the habit of singing God Save the Queen. But yeah, look, I mean, he's been very clear on this, that he's selecting his team. He's trying to do a favour for the next manager to try and change the culture in the locker room. He is selecting the players who are training the hardest. That is what he's trying to do on a weekly basis. And, certainly, one of the players benefiting from that is Conor Gallagher. He's one of those, Todd Burley poster boys, Rog, long-term contract. He's on very, very low wages, right at the bottom end of the Chelsea team charts, certainly in terms of what he makes. And he's coming in and getting good minutes and actually scoring goals. Yeah,
he scored a couple in May alone. Chelsea actually have a healthier goal of the month competition already in May than they did in April, which saw just
they
the
actually
one.
Have a competition.
Yes. But this one was still 1-1 until the 82nd minute. 3 late Chelsea subs. Raz, 3 names, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Moroccan Pulisic, Ziyech. No one looked more surprised than Frank Lampard when it all bore fruit. Wonderful Ziyech ball to the back post, stabbed home by Badia Schär for his first goal for the club. And you could see the cherries just die on the vine or whatever the hell that fruit grows on. Just 4 minutes later, how Felix, come on, seconds before, stabbed home a ball from Raz. Chelsea up 3-1 as the Chelsea faithful belted out, "We're winning away, we're winning away, how shit must you be, we're winning away," and then finished the game by chatting, "We are staying up, we are staying up." But Davo, first win for your club since March 11th, and to see Frank smile again, that club legend, even in the midst of this dead rubber of a season. 3 big boy goals, as you say. Trust the process. Did you bellow that at the television, David? Did it induce any happiness at all?
No, I was singing the other song that Chelsea fans were singing on that day, which is "We scored a goal, we scored a goal." No, it felt good. I'll tell you, here's the glimmer of hope that I mentioned earlier in the recap. Here's what was good about it, is that the players who performed on this day were many of these younger players who are on these long-term contracts at decent wages. And for this team to go forward, for there to be these shoots of life for the next manager of this club, signings like Badia Schär and Madeke and Mudryk are going to have to pay off. Not all of them, but some of them are going to have to pay off. And today I thought, Madueke was very bright. I thought that Badia Schär was excellent, continues to be excellent. Thought Enzo had a good game. And Conor Gallagher, as I mentioned, has been really decent. This is what's going to have to happen for Chelsea to succeed next season. Now, what does success look like? I'm not expecting to get back in and be a top 4 team, maybe a top half team next season, and to build that long process back to, being a decent team in the Premier League. But yeah, there were shoots of life here, Rog.
Oh, we've got to talk quickly about your owner, Todd Boehly, and his, to me, slightly ill-advised appearance Thursday at the Milken Institute Global Conference, in which he muttered, "We want to win, long-term project, we'll figure it out," and pointed out about the club's strong brand position being a London club. Genuinely just sounded like a mad king who'd taken a once-feared force and buried it alive in an avalanche of money. David, on one hand, he'll look at this result and be like, "Well, I spoke once at the Milken Global Conference and Chelsea win. Coincidence? I think not." And so possibly more leadership conference addresses incoming. But great GFOP, Jen Sight at Jen the Wonderkind, tweeted us, "Hearing Todd Boehly talk about the club as a brand repeatedly, he sounds like Kendall Roy promoting Living Plus." What did you make of it all?
Well, let's remember the Milken Conference is a conference for, it's when the world of Wall Street, the world of finance comes to LA, actually comes to Beverly Hills, and they all meet and they talk about private equity and hedge funds and crypto and money and all of those kind of things that, you and I really have very little interest in. But it's to his audience, to a private equity investment audience, everything he said went down perfectly. They were all the buzzwords that they wanted to hear. To Chelsea fans globally, it is dissonant. It sounds appalling. It sounds awful. But to the audience he's speaking to, it was making a lot of sense. And people I know left that room thinking, wow, this guy Boehly seems to be really onto something with that Chelsea investment. These are not people who know anything about football, but they know about investment, and they liked what he said.
Yeah, but just talking, as you say, at a leadership conference, an elite setting, talking about the club in that bubble, as if really it's a live entertainment global platform and not an authentic football club grounded in its local reality. Like, to not have people saying, "No, do the second one right now. Do a lot of the second one. Stop doing the first one. Keep those conversations private, not public. Don't do the Greg Berhalter pathway, the leadership conferences. Talk to the local fans. You need to win them over. They need to be convinced. They need to be placated. And right now, that should be what's coming first." Speaking from the lofty kind of gilded perch of Milken, can't be the way forward. It kind of shows that he does not appreciate the essence of what's been purchased. He needs people around him who can advise him. A whole new pathway. You look at what Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have done. That playbook, that should be the Clear Lake Capital playbook. Club first, town first, fan base first. It's not about you as the owner. It's not about the club as a brand. It's about bridges being built. It's partly a PR challenge, but really mostly a fundamental misunderstanding of what you purchased. And while I'm on it,
I'm not defending Todd Boehly here. Let me be very clear. But what I am saying is that the reason that Rob and Ryan bought that team, it wasn't as a private equity investment. That wasn't their reason for doing it. It was this crazy idea, and they had a passion for, and they had some kind of a vision for, and they decided to do it, and so they can connect in that way. This is a private equity piece of business for Todd Boehly. He's been very clear. That's why he bought the club, because he sees that there's value to be unlocked. That's how he got all the investors. And I agree. It's horrific for Chelsea fans. It's horrific for fans of football at large. But he is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's talking in exactly the kind of way that people who own, who own clubs for those reasons are going to. He's not being performative. He's not doing the performative football passion stuff. He's just being genuine to who he is, and more for us for letting him come in and do it.
And while I'm on it, let my Pulisic go.
Actually, I think the one thing I think that they are doing is protecting Pulisic and helping him get a transfer without coming on and getting injured again. So I think that is going to happen. Wolves 1, Aston Villa 0. Two teams with plenty to play for. Lock horns in this Midlands derby in the 10th minute of a Wolves corner. Totti Gomez applied some Ghanaian levitation to get up and thunder a header off the underside of the bar. Fantastic goal, actually. Went into the roof of the net, Rog. Most aesthetically pleasing goal of the weekend, I think. Villa applied pressure throughout, but Julen Lopetegui's side hold on for their 4th straight home win and 4th straight home clean sheet, seeing them get across that 40-point line in the sand. Meanwhile, Villa's European hopes have fallen on somewhat hard times.
Yeah, local derby played out by two Spanish managers who both led Sevilla to Europa League glory. And in this one, enormous win for Lopetegui's Wolves. They've been smashed. They were bedraggled 6-0 against Brighton last weekend. There was a lot of panic, but safety now. God, what a narrative flip. Guaranteed. And a seismic loss equally for Unai Emery's Villa. 2 straight defeats, almost like a needle falling off a record of their season with that European journey. Good vibes within touching distance. Squad suddenly looking thin, in need of real reinforcements to maintain that progress next season. For Wolves, Totti Gomez's first goal for the club. 4 straight home wins down the stretch, empowering the road gold to hit that 40-point mark, the symbolic marker of safety. And Lopetegui called that task of replacing Bruno Lage and leading his team out of the Premier League relegation zone. This is a man who's done many things in world football, but he called this taking a team that were bottom at Christmas out of the relegation zone. He said this was the most difficult achievement I've ever faced.
Yeah, absolutely. Done a pretty good job, though. We're recording this pod, Rog, on an uncharacteristic Premier League Monday, one on which there are 3 Premier League games stacked up back to back to back because it's the May Bank holiday in the UK. Fulham have beaten Leicester 5-3 behind Willian and Tom Cairney. Braces, Nottingham Forest versus Southampton, a massive relegation battle will kick off this afternoon. But kicking off right around the time we wrap this podcast, I think in about 14 minutes time, Rog, Brighton versus Everton.
Oh my God.
Do I even need to ask you how you're feeling ahead of this one?
I read something that Warren Buffett said at the Berkshire Hathaway board meeting over the weekend. He said, Davo, if you want to figure out how to live your life, write your obituary and then reverse engineer it. And I realized mine just says, I am dead. That's how life feels right now as an Everton fan. What would yours say, by the way?
I have no idea. I don't like to think about things like that. The fact is that
dead.
No, but our obituaries are pointless because we won't be around to read them. So
it's coming for us all.
It's a terrible way to think about how to live your life. I don't know. There are very few things I disagree with Warren Buffett about, but that's one of them. Look, I have never believed, Roger, I'm going to say it again. I didn't believe at the beginning of the season that Everton are going to go down. I didn't believe in the middle of the season. I know it's dark. I know it's going to be a challenge. I still don't believe, looking at the remaining fixtures, that Everton are going to go down. I don't believe it.
I feel like the soprano mother just waving my hand at your rubbish.
No, especially Leeds lost this weekend. Leicester just lost this morning.
I'd like my obituary to say had moist jowls. That's what I'd like it to say. But God, this relegation race is so unbelievably tight. 5 teams have a chance to beat the drop still with crumbs of football left to play. And I've got to say, this visit in minutes to Micro Power Brighton, look, we've not won away in 7 numbing months. That's just incredible. Sean Dyche is self-destructively, stubbornly loyal to Michael Keane, who plays on football as if he's Cockney rhyming slang for obscene. You got Yerry Mina right there on the bench. You got poor Connor Cody right there alongside of him. And after Brighton, Manchester City lie in wait. And Brighton, by the way, are a team who teach us and all clubs everything we need to know about recruitment, planning, scouting, money spent strategically. I pray the only hope I have is that Calvert-Lewin is our Princess Leia, our only hope. A bloke who's really suffered with injury and the mental challenges that come out. I found it very moving when he talked about how joyful it was to celebrate with the fans after scoring again. I hope we have more of that feeling. We need him. GFOP, Troy Blanchard, Davo, wrote to me to talk about the truly exquisite pain of being both an Everton and Oakland Athletics fan at the same time. Davo, can you do the honours and read Troy's little note?
Yeah. He writes, Everton may, well, probably will, go down, but at least the club will exist, ! It will be a going concern. Look at my Oakland A's. They're going the way of the Stegosaurus. Even Vegas doesn't want to deal with their crap. I don't know what to do. I'd bite my thumbs off for Major League Baseball relegation if it meant my A's stayed here with me in Oakland. We endure this glorious era of local nightmares together.
I don't know, Troy. All I can say is I feel your pain. I really, really do. And last night in Succession, this is not a spoiler, but Tom talked about being pre-tired before a party. I'm pre-tired. And that concept is fascinating to me. And I realised I am pre-sad before this Everton game.
You've been pretty sad for years, Rog. That's your latent state. Before we go, a quick reminder about everything we've got happening here at Men in Blazers this week, powered by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. You are back tomorrow for a new episode of European Nights with your Rory Smith, presented by Paramount Plus. Wednesday, it's a Champions League reaction pod. Thursday, we vamos. And Friday, a new episode of WGFOP. A quick shout out for the Raven newsletter, like a hug from Rog in your inbox, talking football in life. Quick shout out also for my other concern, Jeopardy. Jeopardy Masters premieres tonight on ABC. This is a testament to the format Jeopardy and to these amazing masters who play our game, and to Ken Jennings, the GOAT, who hosts Jeopardy Masters. It is superb. Don't miss it. That's on ABC. Check your local listings for times. Rog, can we get a toast to close us out?
Oh, I want to raise this shot of Jägermeister, this bolt of human emotion in a shot glass, to a truly beautiful story from Exeter City. The mighty Grecians play in League One, third level of football. And back in 2010, Exeter club legend Adam Stansfield, may he rest in peace, he passed away from cancer, aged just 31. And Exeter immediately retired his number 9 in his honour. But this season, his son Jay, also similar style, hard-working, goal-scoring striker, joined the club on loan from Fulham, and Exeter allowed him to use his dad's old number 9, brought it back out from retirement, and yesterday, on Jay's final appearance for the club, his boyhood club, he scored a hat-trick. Just delirious scenes, and sometimes football can feel like a cruel business. Other times, though, it's humanity, it's truth, it's poetry. Just make the heart sing. And this epic story of father and son is one of those times. Courage and big love.
Oh, beautiful. You can follow us on Twitter at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davis, at Rog Bennett on Instagram, at Men in Blazers, at Embassy Davis on Facebook. We're Men in Blazers on Twitch, twitch.tv/Men in Blazers. We're on YouTube. You can see a video version of our podcast there, including this podcast, which we will release in full. And right now, our entire interview with Ted Lasso creators and stars Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt. Go and watch that right now. Also, at TikTok, look for it at Men in Blazers. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. Venderpunkt, Rog.
War Pig.
Was that a Rabona?
I like snacks.
Balds win. Balds win.
Take that, Gloria.
Balds lose.
To Tweed.
Abrigado. Rock on, mate.
Kung Fu fighting America. Love you, Davo.
Love you, Rog.
I've been pre-sad for years.
Giles!
Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.